Take a nap, girl. It's nice to come to Cal as well and be like, you brick who doesn't want to electrocute somebody at some point.
And I'm shaking like a leaf because I went up to give her the books and she was like, oh, I know you. You're the ones who dream. Good morning. Well, it's morning for me when I'm filming this. I don't know what time it will be when I release it or what time it is for you, but good morning whenever you have a morning. Today I'm going to be telling you a story of how I met Victoria Aveyard and how that went, and sharing some footage from the Warstorm tour. I had this whole thing planned where I was gonna have makeup on and do my hair and be in front of the bookshelves, and then I thought, meh, why? I feel like stories need pajamas, so I'm in my jammies. My just woke up hairdo. It's gonna be good. I have some coffee here in my Harry Potter cauldron mug and some breakfast. So if I start munching, that's what's happening. I don't know if you guys follow my Instagram, but yesterday before the signing, I binge read all of Warstorm, which is like 657 pages in under 7 hours. And my eyes are killing me. I don't even wear glasses or anything, but I was concentrating at oh my gosh, at this distance. And so anything I look at that's this close, I feel like this ache right here. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I think some people can just do that. They just speed read everything and can read for hours and hours, but I need a break usually after about 3 or else I feel like I'm gonna die, so I don't feel good today. So our story begins on an early morning when a young fangirl arose from deep sleep to go and meet one of her heroes. Seriously, you don't want to know how early I had to get up. The signing, so I'm from Vancouver, and the signing was in Vancouver, but it's actually in Metrotown, which is a mall in Burnaby, which if you don't know the area is probably an hour and a half by transit from me. And so the way that the event worked was the first 200 people with wristbands got to go in, but in order to get a wristband, you had to buy a book when the store opened. And so consequently, I had to go line up before the store opened to make sure I got a wristband, which is all fine, except for I had to bus there an hour and a half away. So I think I got up at 5:30 or something, which I guess is not that early, but it was pretty early considering I had a really late night. My uncle's in town also, so we were hanging out and playing cards till late. Anyway, I don't do well with not a lot of sleep. I need a solid 8 to 10 hours to feel like a competent human. So anyway, so I got up, got ready, got on the bus, took off to Burnaby. I made it there, and the bookstore where the event was happening was inside a mall. And even though the mall didn't open until after the bookstore, the main doors were unlocked. So I just went in and was waiting outside the bookstore in the mall. And then there was another entrance outside the mall for the same bookstore. And so I wasn't quite sure which entrance I was supposed to go to, but it was cold, so I stayed inside the mall. And then about half an hour later, this other girl showed up who had apparently been to dozens of these signings. And she was like, oh no, this is the right door. It's always the inside door. Don't even worry about it. We're in the right place. So I was like, okay, that's good. So we chatted and started geeking out about Sarah J. Maas, which was really funny because we were there to see Victoria Aveyard. Then about 5 minutes before the shop opened, the manager came out and was to us, and then also probably 16 other people waiting there, oh, are you here for the Victoria Aveyard event? And we're like, yeah. And he goes, yeah, you're actually in the wrong line. The real line is outside, so you're gonna have to go wait in the back of that. Go to the other line if you want to get in. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? I've already been here for 2 hours and was worried about that and was at the front of the line. I was second in line and then had to go out to the other door and get in the back of the other line, which was fine in the end, but I was freaking out because I'm are you kidding me? I came all this way and waited all this time and I'm already out of the running right away. And so I go to the other line and then I'm kind of freaking out because it's quite a big line. And then this girl who noticed me before, who is super sweet, thank you, was like, hey, you were ahead of me in the other line. Do you want to come in front of me? And I was like, yes, thank you. So I got to jump the line a bit and managed to get in. And it wasn't as busy as I thought it would be. So I was definitely well within the running for the 200 wristbands. So that was all fine, but it was a little moment of panic, which I took a little video of myself after in the moment of chaos. So I'll pass it over to yesterday's Victoria and she can tell you about her emotions. Look at this face, look at it. I need to breathe, but I can't breathe because I'm freaking out and I thought I lost my spot, but I can't even speak. I'm sitting here in public manically laughing because I'm the emotions. So I just got my wristband to see Victoria Aveyard and oh my word, I was so I got here at God knows what early hour because I wanted to line up to make sure I got one. And so I got there and lined up and there was nobody there and I was like, okay, perfect, but it's at this mall, right? So I was on the inside. And then 10 minutes before the store's opening, there's 12 of us there. This guy comes out and he's like, are you here for the signing? Because the lineup is actually outside, so you're gonna have to go out there. So I was here from so freaking early, and then had to go to the very back of the line outside and was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm not gonna get a wristband now, and I've been here for ages and I've wasted all this time, and I'm at the back of the line. So I was having this like moment of panic. I'm like, I'm not gonna get it, but I got it. So we're good, and I can breathe. And I made friends with some people, and we geeked out about Sarah J. Maas, which was fun. So yeah, life's good. So I got the book and the wristband and was very excited, but the event was not till 7 p.m. that evening. So at that point it was like maybe like 9:45 a.m. So I had all day to wait, but I also hadn't read Warstorm yet, and I wanted to make sure that I read it before I met Victoria Aveyard. And so I just found a little corner in Starbucks and started reading, and so I read the first, like, I don't know, 300 pages or so, and then was like, okay, I need to get up. So I wandered around the mall for a bit and ended up in the Tim Hortons, and then read the rest of it. And then I went back to the store at around 4 o'clock, so the event was at 7, so I gave myself 3 hours, and I went in, and the staff were like, oh, I know you. You were here this morning. And I'm like, yeah, I'm here for the event. I'm really weird like that. And they're like, okay. And so I start wandering around, and they're kind of just starting to set it up. And so I found the manager again, and I was like, do you know what time we can actually like come in to sit down? And he was like, he just gave me this look like, what a freak. And he was like, I have no idea. And I was like, okay, thank you. So then I went outside the shop again into the mall and just sat there. I think I had like 50 pages of the book left, which I wanted to savor. So I started reading that again. And then the manager comes out, and he's like, by the way, you can come line up now for the seats. And that was probably like 4:30. So I was like, okay. And so I go in, and then the other staff member is like, you again? And I'm like, why am I such a freak? Anyway, so because I was so persistent and kept pestering all the staff members, I managed to be first one in line for the lineup to get in to see Victoria Aveyard for the event. And so the way that it's set up is 200 people get wristbands, but then they set up this floor space. So she has her little station at the front, her stage, and then there's about 20 chairs, and then everyone else can just crowd in behind. So if you want to get like a good spot in the chairs, you have to line up, obviously. And so I was there, like I said, around probably 4 and was allowed to line up around 4:30. So I was the front of that line, and then a trickle of people started coming in, but then the bulk of people probably came around 6, so an hour before the event. And so, yeah, I was more waiting time, and I kind of missed the end of the book. Like I still had, I don't know, 20 pages or something, which I finished, but I was in a line at that point, and there were staff members talking to me, and the girl next to me was talking to me, and there was music playing and all this stuff. So I read it, but I'm like, I don't even know what actually happened in this book. Which was fine. I reread it the same evening later, but I remember being like, okay, so I finished it, but like, what did I just read? What? And there was like a really sad bit, which I won't spoil for you, but I was sitting there like wanting to cry, and I'm like, must resist. So yeah, they already thought I was enough of a freak. I didn't want to add like crying over a book to that. So I resisted, and it was fine. So I was waiting, and the girl next to me that was waiting in the second line for the chairs was way nicer than the girl I met that morning. Like, she was super sweet, and it was really nice to chat with her. But the girl I met in the morning, like, I kept freaking out because I was like super fangirling. Like, I was going to meet Victoria Aveyard, so I kept being like, I'm so excited. And the girl in the morning was just like, okay. And then the girl in the afternoon was like, me too! And I was like, oh, my people. So then we got in, and because I was the front of that line, I managed to be in not only the front row of the chairs, but like also the very center. So I was basically just looking up straight at Victoria Aveyard. So we waited there for about another hour because they let us in around 6 or 6:15. And then finally they announced Victoria Aveyard is coming. And so she comes in, and I have the perfect view to like watch her. And she walks, oh, I feel like such a creeper. I had the perfect view to watch her. So she comes up on the stage, and she's so sweet, and she's like waving, and she must be exhausted because she's been flying around. Like, she was in Toronto only yesterday, which is, if you don't know, like a 5-hour plane ride from here. So anyway, crazy. And so she sits down, and the clapping stops, and then she looks right at me and like does this big smile. And so I thought she was just being polite because like there's a lot of us sitting down, and you know, she's making eye contact with a fan. She's nice, so she smiled. And so I didn't really think anything of it. And so I went back to listening, and she started talking about her book. There was about a half an hour question and answer period where one of the staff members asked her questions. She answered them non-spoilery because she didn't want to give away anything, obviously. Warstorm has just come out, and she said a lot of the people at the signing had not even read some of her other books, so it was all very non-spoilery, more about her process or her characters. And at this point, my cell phone had like 3% battery left, so I was like, fuck. Because I really wanted to record the entire thing for you guys, but alas, that didn't happen. But I managed to kind of record certain questions that I thought were the most interesting and that were short. So I have some clips for you, which I will now play. And so I'm sorry if you're only here for the story, or if you were only here for the clips of Warstorm, this is your little section and you can just ignore me the rest of the video. But here it is, enjoy.
pardon the pun, spark of this book series. Thank you. That was kind of you to do. It was, I had this image of a girl in an arena about to be executed, and instead of being executed, she kills her executioner with lightning. She electrocutes him. And I was like, whoa, what is this? I am very excited about this. And I had already known in my head, I was thinking about writing a novel. Up till that point, my background had been in screenwriting. I was finishing up college. I was about to graduate with a lot of loans and a recession with a film degree. It was really scary. And I thought, you know what I'm going to do to save myself? Write a book. And my parents were like, great. But I went kind of full tilt on this idea, and I started asking myself questions, who is this person? What did she do to get in this position? What kind of world exists around her? Superhuman abilities are clearly in play, so what's going on there? And once I knew that superhuman powers were going to be part of the world, like a large part of it, it wasn't just her who had them, I started thinking about how I love stuff where people have superpowers or magic, but something I'd always found kind of strange is in like Harry Potter or X-Men, they're either on the fringe, they're in secret, they're on the run, they're the ones who are oppressed or who are considered different. And I thought, well, in the real world, if a super race of humans suddenly arose, it wouldn't take very long for them to sort of flip the script and take control. So that's where I was jumping off from in Red Queen was humans have evolved to have superpowers, and those superhumans are now the ruling class. So what happened to the rest of us? I did a lot of Wikipedia is great. They actually have full lists, but for the most part, it was Mare's power I knew right from the get-go, so that one was a bit easier. I wasn't, picking and choosing. I knew I wanted both Princess Cal and Maven to be fire controlling, and a lot of people say, oh, your inspiration was from X-Men, clearly, and I was like, yeah, kind of X-Men, also a lot of Pokemon. And I think you can tell that I always picked Charmander, because I liked making things difficult for myself. But I've always had an affinity for fire-wielding creatures. So it was natural for me to choose that for the boys. Evangeline was metal largely because I thought it was just so cool and interesting, and I love Magneto, of course, but then there was the challenge of having already iconic characters who have this superhuman ability, and it was finding new ways into it. So the way that she wears metal in her clothes, and in the later books when we get more into her point of view, the way that she is thinking about metal at all times and naming the different parts and thinking, well, this is what I can do to a person with that door hinge. Yeah, these covers are awesome, and I think more than anything any one of us has done, these covers have sold these books. But for the most part, yeah, they were very, very inclusive of me, which is not necessarily the norm. I've heard, great stories from authors who have had a lot of input on their covers, and I've heard stories from authors who are essentially told, this is your cover and deal with it. But no, they asked me, what do you like in a book cover, and what do you want on the book cover? And I said, I like simple covers. In 2015, when this first debut, covers were very busy and there was lots going on, so I thought, well, the only way that we're going to stand out is if we do less. So I want to do a symbol, something like Hunger Games, Divergent, Game of Thrones, Outlander, those are the book covers I love. Let's do an upside down crown. And they're like, great, can we put blood on it? And I said, yes, please. And then from then on, we kind of I guess we really struck oil on that one. People loved the cover. In hindsight, we looked like geniuses, even though I guess they really had to fight to get that one through. And then we had an iconography kind of set up for the rest of the books, and we went with crowns for every single one, and they match the titles, they match what's happening in the book. Some people have noticed that the blood colors have changed a little bit from book to book, which was really fun to see happen. I love maps. I tend to only write things that require a map, so that narrows it down. But the Red Queen map, something that I have always really enjoyed, is the first two books didn't have maps, and then the third book we put one in, and started getting a lot of people who were like, your map looks a lot like North America. You just copied North America. And I was like, gee, I wonder why I did that. Because because there were people who, I guess it was layered in enough that the connection was not made that this is not a separate world. This is North America several thousand years from now, post-apocalyptic, post-reconstruction, sort of the world has broken apart and reformed in a different way. And that in itself was really fantastic because I was literally building on something that already existed. And I could sort of figure out or try and inform myself on where things were going to go. One of the things I really enjoyed but also hated doing, because it might be a reality, was destroying Florida, because climate change was clearly not addressed in this world. So there's a couple islands where Florida used to be, and in the full version of the map, which isn't in the books, like Los Angeles is gone because the San Andreas Fault cracked, and there's the Louisiana Delta flooded. That was morbid and really, really, really enjoyable to figure out what parts were going to still be around. Next year, I'm going to be doing a bind-up of Red Queen World short stories and extra content, so more information as well as some more glimpses into what's going on with the people who survived Warstorm. And then after that, I am going to hopefully be launching into a new sandbox, so new YA fantasy series. Exciting. Yeah, I'm excited. The process is ongoing. The production team has been really fantastic with me and really inclusive, and asked for my notes. They still take me out to dinner, which is a good sign. But for the most part, it's difficult because with film, you can't say anything until the second you can say something, and things don't feel like they're moving until the second they're greenlit and you have a release date. It's very much a process, but having come from the film side of things, it's nice because I know where I can be of use and where I can be involved, and I also know like that's not my job, I don't want it to be my job, and I would just be in the way. Yeah, I think, you guys have a real lineup this summer. Next month, A Reaper at the Gates comes out by Sabbath to Hear, so that's yeah, I hear you guys. That one's going to be excellent. Earlier this year, and Ashley, I feel like it's going to hit me because I keep talking about this book so much. Holly Black released Cruel Prince, which is so good. And I've actually, and I'm going to brag, I managed to get my hands on the second one, the arc of the second one, and it is even better. So if you guys have not read that yet, please read that.
So after the question period where the staff member was asking me questions, she opened it to the floor for anyone to ask questions. So I have a few clips of that as well. It's really hard to hear the questions. So as before, I'll put a slide with what they asked before, so it's easier for you to follow. And yeah, here you go. Enjoy.
Take a nap, girl. Yeah, the one who's most directly inspired by a real person is Farley. So my best friend's middle name is Farley. She has long blonde princess hair, and that's why Farley keeps getting her head shaved. They have a similar personality as well. They're both very hostile people. And I say that with love. But yeah, she's probably the closest to being based on one particular person. No. They're characters I like writing for different reasons. So Maven makes me a better writer because he is so complex. His motivations are coming from all over the place. And there's a lot of balls in the air when I'm writing him. I really have to focus and be on my game to write him properly. Evangeline is really fun because it's almost like living vicariously through like the sassiest person you could imagine, and she's so well dressed, and she's just kind of power personified, but at the same time incredibly vulnerable, and it was really, really a treat to sort of get into her head. I like writing Mare a lot too, who doesn't want to electrocute somebody at some point, so that's always fun. And then when you're sick of all of these really kind of nasty people who have all these motivations going all the way around, it's nice to come to Cal as well and be like, you brick. You are just like, focused on one thing, and it's one thing going on in your head. That's a treat too. That's refreshing. All of them though, and this isn't helpful, again, like some stories, tapped me on the shoulder. Mare Barrow kind of dropped out of the sky as her name. And some people are like, oh, it sounds like bone marrow. You did that on purpose. And I'm like, I'm not that smart. Kalorn Warren also tapped me on the shoulder. Do not ask me where his first name came from. I have no idea still. It just, everyone's like, that's a weird name. And I'm like, I know. Maven also came out of nowhere, but his last name was constructed. The most constructed of the names was Cal, because I knew he was going to have like a long, goofy royal name and a cool nickname. So it was, let's figure out that name and what can I shorten it into. And his last name is Calor, which means heat in Latin. Again, so smart. But yeah, it's a mixture. I also had an Excel sheet where I had silver names and red names, which one kind of sounded like it would belong to a noble, bloodthirsty warrior, which one would belong to an oppressed person. You know what I'm saying. But then when you got to, I would have like bit characters or smaller lines, and I would just be able to pick a name and then cross it out and say, okay, I've used that name now. And that was really handy to have, so I wasn't constantly brainstorming names. I had a bank ready to go, which I highly recommend.
So the whole question period wrapped up after about 45 minutes, and then we moved on to the signing. And so because I was in the front row, they did the signing by rows, and so I was like right at the beginning. I think because I was in the center, there were like 3 or 4 people in front of me. That was good because I got to leave really early instead of waiting around for hours, but also I suddenly got really nervous. And so I had put my songs, my Red Queen songs, on a USB stick to give her, and so I had this whole thing planned out in my head because I'm so awkward, and like I need to rehearse things or I just freak out and like get all tongue-tied and like don't know what to say. And so I had this whole thing planned out in my head. I was gonna be like, I don't know if you remember, but like I have this YouTube channel where I write songs about books, and anyway, I don't know if you know, but like if you do, you shared the Maven one, and so I put them on this USB stick for you in case you want to like give them another listen, because I can't draw, but I can do music, so here you go. Then I was gonna be all like, I really like how you're outspoken on Twitter and how you're so kind to your fans, and I love your books, and you have real depth to your writing, and blah blah blah. And I was gonna, I had this whole spiel, okay? So I get up to her and I'm like, I open my mouth to say it, and then she just goes, "Hey, I know you," and I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, we've interacted online, haven't we? So I start freaking out at that point, and then I just get like, yeah, I write music based on books. And she's like, oh my gosh, yes, you are so talented. I love it so much. I love what you do. Oh my goodness. And she starts like gushing about me. And so then I get like so flustered. I literally just pull out the USB stick and I go, okay, I put them on here for you. Okay, thanks. Except for she was still signing my books at that point. And so luckily, like, she noticed the Red Queen one that I have is actually from the UK because I used to live there. And she was like, oh, why do you have the UK cover? And so that started another conversation about how I used to live in Durham and she knows someone from Durham and it was all fine. But oh my gosh, I was so freaking awkward. Like, I put them in here for you, okay? I even have a photo, which I will insert here. I don't know if you can quite tell, but the, like, facial expression, it's from the side, but, like, that's me going, okay, I have it on here, I put it on the stick for you. It's just so painful. Like, oh, so I don't know if you ever watched this, Victoria, but I'm so sorry that I was such a freak, and I'm so grateful that you listen to my music, and I love your writing, and I'll be cooler next time. And then after she finished signing them, I was still freaking out by that point, and she kept talking about how I was so talented, so I was like, I'm gonna go cry now. In my head, that was a joke. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go cry, because I was like happy, but I wouldn't actually cry in that situation. But then I was talking like this because I was freaking out, so then she just looks at me and she goes, oh, don't cry. And I was like, this is just terrible, and I'm dying in a hole, and I need to just stop talking right now. But she was so sweet. I was just so flustered and awkward, and why? Why am I such a freak? So yeah, it was very, very awkward. For me, she was lovely. She was so kind, and I could not believe she recognized me. So it was quite the moment. And so I also filmed myself in my reaction, but my phone was on 1% battery by that time, so it kept cutting out, and then I kept doing it again because I was on low power mode. So it's a little bit like choppy, but here's my reaction right after. Oh my gosh, so I just got out of the signing and I'm shaking like a leaf because I went up to give her the books and she was like, oh, I know you, we've interacted all. And I was like, oh my gosh, how do you even remember that? Because all she saw is my music. And I was like, yeah, I wrote some songs based on Red Queen. And she was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I saw those, you're so talented. And I started freaking out and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna start crying. And then she's like, no, don't cry, your music is so good. And then I was like shaking and I just had this USB and I was like, I put them on here for you. Okay, bye. And then my books were signed, so I left. And I was like such a freak, but I cannot believe that she actually like remembered me and was like, yeah. And like, oh my gosh, it was so like, I'm dying right now. I just cannot even believe it. And like, I'm dying right now. And my phone is on 3% battery, so I tried to film some things for you guys, but I couldn't quite manage it all. And I'm like shaking so badly. I'm like, oh my gosh, like you don't even understand. So I feel a bit manic and people are giving me weird looks because I just like came outside to a more private place so I could like try to vlog in secret because I didn't want to do it in the middle of a bookstore. But like I wish that it had gotten on film or I could have taken a selfie with her, but there was a huge line, so the lady that worked there took like a few pictures while I was getting them signed, but mostly it just looks like me like collapsing with like fangirlness and like shaking. I was shaking so bad, you guys, like you don't even understand. I'm still shaking and like, oh, I'm so excited. So yeah, anyway. So yeah, that really concludes the story. After she finished signing my books, I basically just had to collect them and then leave the store because they were trying to make space for everyone else coming up to sign. So in some ways it was a little anticlimactic because there was no like, thank you all for coming by, but that's fine. I don't even know how late they went. I got out of there probably at 8, but I assume the signing was still going on until like 10 at least. Because if you think about it, there's at least 200 people there and she spends probably 3 minutes with each person. So yeah, it was crazy. But she was just so kind. Like I cannot even describe to you, like aside from my little brief interaction, like I was listening to her talk to the people in front of me and like she had something wonderful to say to each person and like yeah, it was so polite and just like, oh, that's a wonderful name, like how are you, and like so genuine, and she's so funny too, which I'm sure you gathered from the clips. But yeah, she's just a really wonderful person and her books are great obviously, but it's always nice to know that the person writing the books is also a wonderful person as much as their writing is wonderful. And that they really care for people, especially in a story that's kind of about caring for people. Yeah, it was quite the experience, and I still cannot believe she recognized me. But yeah, so I'm still living on that high, and hope you enjoyed this story time video. It was not really funny, it was just me being a total freak, but that's pretty normal, so. And I hope you also enjoyed the clips of Victoria Aveyard. If you didn't get a chance to make it out to the Warstorm tour, at least now you can say that you saw a little bit of it. So I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you read Warstorm because I will be posting my book talk probably next week. So make sure you check that out and read the series because they're fantastic if you haven't. And yeah, it's basically like Hunger Games mixed with X-Men mixed with Game of Thrones. So like, what is not to love about that? These are like 3 of my favorite things. So yeah, read them, check them out, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. I love y'all. Bye!